Other thing I wanted to talk about was this. Kind of a big deal. And I'm seeing people talking about this thing being addressed as if like, oh, that's it. This isn't that big of a deal. And it's this news right here. The news that Street Fighter 6 has officially sold, not shipped. These are very different numbers. Sold 2 million copies in less than a month. By the time this information would have came through and been verified, it was most likely less than a month. So 2 million copies in a month. People are saying, no, that isn't as good as, Final Fantasy 16. That isn't as good as this. That isn't as good as that. And there's been a lot of like, that doesn't seem like it was as good as Street Fighter 4 and all that kind of stuff. So I've read a lot of responses to this, but fairly huge congratulatory moment for the Capcom fighting game crew, because I don't think a lot of people understand. This is outside of like Street Fighter 2 arcade, right? And that crazy shit of the 90s where Capcom literally made $10 billion off of Street Fighter 2 and all its versions. I'm not kidding you. It's crazy. Selling 2 million copies of a fighting game, one that isn't attached to something being like a huge property, like essentially Smash Brothers or Mortal Kombat. Those games will always eclipse numbers in this fashion, if not way more, in the first month. There's very few fighting games that'll hit numbers like this. Very few. This is a big deal because I believe, based on all the shit I've been covering all the years I've been covering it, comes close to being the best-selling Capcom fighting game for the time frame, I think almost ever, outside of the Street Fighter 2 era. I went back and I found some articles within the first few weeks of Street Fighter 4 being out. And Street Fighter 4 did celebrate 2 million units, but not sales. It was shipped. That was a much different era of the industry, 2008 to 2009, where digital sales did not account for the majority of the purchasing audience of people that are playing fighting games, much less video games in general. The larger thing they celebrated back then, 15 years ago, hey, we can celebrate how many copies we shipped to stores. But that would still mean that there's like hundreds of thousands of copies of the game sitting in stores, not being sold, which will just mean they'll go on sale faster and the premium price of the game will go down quicker. So yeah, Street Fighter 2 was celebrating within the first couple weeks or so 2 million copies shipped, but that is very different than 2 million copies sold through. And the fact that Street Fighter hit that in this time frame essentially means that it is the best-selling Capcom fighting game within this period of time. It's sold better than Street Fighter 4, Marvel 3, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Street Fighter 5, and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, the modern, quote-unquote, modern era of Capcom fighting games. So that's crazy. What's even crazier is we have to look up some crazy stuff. Hold on a second. Yeah, so check this out. This was a recent article that went up with the executives at Capcom about their sales expectations of current games that are going to be going through. The Street Fighter 6 series, Street Fighter 6 in general, sales expectations is 10 million from the Capcom CEO. And that seems fucking wild, right? Like, what the hell are you talking about? Some insane numbers. However, they're probably going to hit it. And that is lifetime sales of the game. Even Street Fighter 5 ended up selling somewhere between 7 million copies of the game in its 6 to 7 year lifespan, right? So at this point, it's looking pretty friggin' likely. It's actually looking almost like a guarantee, unless something really bad happens within the lifetime of Street Fighter 6, unless something really bad happens. I think I said this last night. I didn't even know if this quote existed, that like, if they sold 2 million copies in the first month, yeah, they're looking at 10 million potentially at the end of all things. And if they play their cards right and have some really great DLC and great updates, they can possibly get more. This also lines up with other fighting games that have reached 10 million copies sold, if not gotten very close to it. And you have the only other company that you can go outside of NRS and Smash is Bandai Namco. And Bandai Namco had similar success with Dragon Ball FighterZ in similar time frames, as well as Tekken 7. So those games, over the time frame that they had existed, got close to like 10 million copies for either game, which is absolutely insane, but also got continually great updates and engaged their audience, did all this stuff that was really good decision making over the long run. So yeah, Street Fighter 6 has actually a pretty good chance of being Capcom's quote-unquote best-selling fighting game since Street Fighter 2. It really does. I think it's a testament that they really grew a brain. Not only is the game good, they actually packed the game. It's feature-rich. It's online feature-rich. There's been some issues with the online, but it definitely is getting worked out. But all this really is, and a lot of people are like, that doesn't seem like a lot. No, it is. And the only reason it doesn't seem like a lot is that you hear of these success stories from other ends of the boat. WB Games essentially putting in an extra $100 million of marketing money for a Mortal Kombat game has a significant effect. And Smash Brothers is Smash Brothers, so of course it's going to sell like 10 million copies in the first month or something like that, right? A relative hardcore fighting game that Street Fighter is, that mostly focuses a lot of its effort into fighting other people along with a story mode, which is what they needed to do. Selling on that level is pretty crazy. I absolutely hope that this is put into good use for the future of Capcom fighting games, and the lessons here will essentially teach us the lessons going forward. It also, you know, kind of sucks because who knows where they're going to go from this point forward, much less how long it's going to take, because Street Fighter 6 was heavily delayed through its development process. But the nice part is that you feel why it was delayed, right? You can see where that effort, timing, and polish went over that time frame. It's incredible. I don't think I could have asked for more out of a fighting game, much less for it to engage me the way it is. And I'm truly happy that we are in an era where the Capcom fighting game division grew a brain in that skull of theirs that seemingly was lacking that of which for a very long time. And the majority of things that have gone down for Street Fighter 6 since its initial reveal have been truly something special, and it felt like they were making good call after good call after good call. I don't think it's, you know, quite literally absolutely perfect, but I think it's the highest effort fighting game in terms of like providing for an experience that'll make people happy and give you what you want. I think they put like the most effort you possibly could. Do I wish it sold more? I do. I wish the sales were higher. But ultimately, even if you have a fighting game that gives the player literally everything, 2 million units sold in the first month is pretty goddamn good. I'm just excited to see where they go from here, and I'm excited to see how the game changes, because we're obviously going to get the first big change very soon with Rashid, and then seemingly around Evo, some more announcements, so we'll see what the hell happens.